Good morning, people in the south. Good day, my people in the west. And good afternoon, my friends in the east. Good evening, my lovely people in the north. How are you guys doing? It's a beautiful day today. Beautiful day in the south, in southern Africa. The rain has stopped a bit. We are seeing a beautiful weather, and it's a new day, another dollar, another day. It's a new week, it's a new month, and we keep on soldiering on. So in the last couple of episodes, the last two episodes, I spoke about division of innovation, which involves how customers get a grasp on the product and how your product gets absorbed by the users or your services, how your services gets absorbed by the users. Then the episode after that, I spoke about how our businesses are being undermined because they're small and they're being regarded as projects. And I'm gonna take it from all of those two episodes going forward, as I always do, because the two episodes that I've mentioned are solely based on customers. So it's purely about customers and how, especially the one before this one, which is the one where I spoke about how our businesses are being regarded as small businesses, because the title or the topic of that episode was about building for the global market, not the guy just around the corner. So today I'm gonna take it from those two and go forward with the rest. There's a phrase that says work smarter, not harder. Work smarter, not harder. So we'll break it down a little bit. We'll break down the smarter part against the harder part a little bit, not too deep, just a little bit. Working smart and not hard, it's basically a sign of understanding your customers, understanding your customer needs, understanding what your customers are saying about your product, what they anticipate from your service, and so on and so forth. So that assists you as an entrepreneur, as a service provider, as a business to understand your customers better, and you'll be able to work smarter. So today I'm going to talk about something called Paredo principle. Paredo principle. There's a guy called what's his name? His surname is Paredo. He's an Italian guy. What's his name? Ish, something is wrong here. Let me just do this once and for all. There's a guy called his surname is Paredo. Vilfredo Paredo. I'm not sure if it's pronounced Vilfredo or Vilfredo. Vilfredo Paredo is an Italian he's an Italian polymath. A polymath is someone who studied in different fields, who has studied in different fields. It's a polymath. So Vilfredo Paredo is an Italian polymath. So Vilfredo Paredo came up with a principle, or put together a principle called Paredo principle. The principle is called 80-20 or 20-80 principle. Most of you might be aware of the principle. So I'm going to try and distribute this principle amongst building your innovations, building your businesses and services for the global market. Understanding the definition of innovation for the global market. So you're going to introduce this 2080 principle, Paredo principle, to understand those two things and link them together. You understand? So as I said, he completed studies in multiple fields, and one of the fields one of the studies that Pareto completed was sociology. He also studied political economics, amongst other things. So this is the guy whom we can trust with what he was, or he is trying to teach us about this principle, or his principle, the Pareto principle. The 2080 principle, or 80-20 principle. It doesn't matter how you rearrange the format, or the format. You start with 20 or you start with 80, doesn't really matter, but it's 20-80, 80-20, doesn't matter. 2080 principle. The 80-20 principle is about outcomes driven. It's about things that are going to contribute into the understanding of your customer towards your service. So the outcomes of your service or your product that you deliver to the customers is going to be determined by this principle. So the work smarter hard comes to the 20 part of the principle. The work harder part will be covered by the 80% of the principle. So 2080 principle simply represents work smarter, not harder. So if you want to work hard, you concentrate on the 80% part. If you want to work smart, you concentrate on the 20% part. So 20% versus 80% is 2080. So I'm going to touch base a lot on that, trying to link that with the 2 previous episodes so that we understand what the customers anticipate from us. So we as and when we build and provide services or build products or innovations, we anticipate customers to buy our services, our products. As they buy the products, we hope other customers will be able to see the service and the products from the ones that we've already serviced or delivered the product to. That's when I spoke about the early adopters and early majorities. And then we believe word of mouth will play its role, and customers will understand or will see and will be impressed by your products, will be impressed by your services, and you will start to see many calls coming through, as well as orders coming through if maybe you work with orders and stuff like that. But there is a catch. There is something that you need to do to work on this principle so that it gives you the full benefit of its effect. So let's start with the 20 part. Okay, let's start with the 80% part, 80-20%. Let's start with the 80% part. If you have, what can I give an example with? I normally give an example with selling products, and I normally give examples with gadgets when you sell gadgets. But today I want to give an example with something that you make yourself. It's something that you make yourself, not something that you're gonna buy and resell. So I'm trying to think of, from top of my head, of something that you will actually sit, design or make, and then Okay, let's take vision designing. Vision designing, you buy raw material and then you work the dresses out, you work the trousers, the suits out, and then you knit whatever, and then you design a complete outfit. Yeah, let's take vision designing. So I think vision designing is going to be a perfect fit for the 80-20 principle. So we're starting with the 80 part of the principle. The 80 part represents, or you have an entire market, which is 100% market that you're trying to cap. So we're taking 80% of that market. And the 80% of that market, or the 80 part of that market, should be represented by, I want to put it in a layman's terms so that you don't get confused when I deliver this to you, because I'm also delivering a service, so that you become impressed with the service and you understand what I'm saying quickly and easily. You have 100% service that you want to give to your customers. You are selling designer clothes and you are designing them yourself. You do them from scratch. So you don't want to go and advertise to every other customer that you anticipate to service out of all the total addressable market. You don't want to go out to every customer and say, this is what I'm selling. You don't want to do that. So this is where the early majority comes in, but I'll link the early majority with the 20 part of the principle. And then I'll link every other customer segment with, from 20% will be linked to the early adopters. From early majority to the last, to the laggers, will be linked to the 80%. But you don't want to go and start advertising this product to people in a different town somewhere, to people in a different city, people in a different province, people in a different country. You don't want to do that. That's the 80 part. So what the principle is saying is, work on the 20 part of your product or your service. I'm not sure if I'm making sense. So this works in both ways. So the 80-20 is for the customers and it's also for you as a service provider. So for you to be able to reach or to get a full to be able to reach a high number of customers, or to give a full outcomes of your service and product, you don't need to work harder by going out and advertising to each and every customer everywhere, every billboard and every. Understand what I'm trying to say? You just need to work on the 20% part of the principle. That's what the Paredo is saying. So Paredo principle says, work smart. Work on the 20% part of your product or service. The 80% will be addressed by the 20%. That's working smart. Meaning, you are going to sit down, look into what you've already studied your customers, you understand your division of innovation, you understand your market segment, you understand all of those things that I spoke about. Now you're going to sit down and analyze what your customers need, what your customers like, what your customers love. I'm not limiting this to only fashion designing. It can be baking, it can be you are building vehicles, it can be you're building houses, smart houses, whatever it is. So you're going to sit down and analyze your customers. Then you know that my customers, if I do this, they will like it. You understand? So every time when you serve one customer, the customer tells you, I like this about the product, your product does this. If it had this, it would be much more easier. Then they help you to pivot a little bit. And then if maybe on your modern smart house, when you deliver the house and assemble the house, don't use a tractor, use a crane, because when you use a tractor, you scratch whatever, you pivot your services right there, or your product. When you know, I'm just painting a picture for you to understand. So you'll be able to know what your customer needs, what your customer wants, what your customer is interested in. And then you start working on the 20% part of your customers, the 20% part of your products. I'm not sure if I'm delivering this the way, I don't want to deliver it the way I understand it. I want to deliver it in a layman's understanding so that anyone can be able to understand it. So you are going to now, I'm going to have to look for another example as I'm going. You are going to now work on the 20% of your customers. So you look at the problems that you're solving, you look at the needs that these problems should come along with, you look at a whole lot of things, and then you work around something that will make your product to contribute factors that will make your customers more happier. Which customers? Early adopters. So these are the customers that are going to be the first to buy, the first to use your service. Make sure that these you capture these customers such that when they leave, they will be left with no choice but to do all the work for you in terms of showing, recruiting, and getting the product known by all other customer segments, the early majority, the late majority, and all of that. So you work on the 20% of that entire process. So working on the 20% of the entire thing, it should be able to address the other 80%. So you don't have to go and work on the 80%. The 80% will work itself out. Once you address this 20% of your services, your products, your innovations, the rest will address itself, because you were able to understand what your customers need. You were able to understand what your customers' problems are. You were able to understand the things that appetizes your customers. Then you worked around those things, and then you deliver the product that satisfied all corners, all pockets of your customers' needs. And your customers are able to take that out for you. You sell one product, 50 more orders come through because they saw one product from one customer. So you have addressed all other segments. And when you get to the chasm, you're not going to feel the effect or the impact of the chasm. It's going to be very much easier for you to go through or to jump the chasm, because you have done your thorough work on the 20%. You've addressed the rest of the 80% with just 20%. You worked smarter, not harder. You would not be required to go pay for 5,000 billboards across the country. You will not be required to go on every radio station of the country, whatever country where you reside, because you have done an excellent job in the first group of customers, which are the early adopters of your innovation or your product or your service. These people are going to do the rest of the job. That's the 20-80 principle. So you address 20% of your problems or the customer's problems, which will address 80% of the entire customer targeted market. So the 20% that you address is going to address the rest of the 80% of the total addressable market. That's what I mean. So I hope I've put it in a way that it's in a layman's understanding, so that you understand exactly how I understand it. So basically, the 80%, it's the outcome. It's the 80% of the work that we've done. It's actually 80% represents the outcomes. So it's outcome driven. What you want to see is you covering the entire term, total addressable market. So the outcomes that you expect, it's the entire market responding. If you're targeting the global market, you expect the entire global market responding. You expect your product to be sold in Egypt. You expect your entire product to be sold in Spain, to be sold in Kenya, to be sold in Namibia. You expect the market to respond. So 80% is the outcomes that we expect, but 20% it's the contributing factors that are going to make the 80% easier. So whatever that you put in the 20% should be able to make the 80% easier. So this is the 20, this is the 80. Whatever that you're going to do on the 20%, you must make sure that you put as much effort as possible. You must make it the point that whatever that you put into this 20%, it's going to address this 80% automatically. Whatever, you see to it that whatever factor that you put into the 20%, like it or not, dark or blue, it's going to drive the entire 80% market and more. So these are contributing factors. Yeah, these are contributing factors that you're going to work on. Contributing factors on your service and your products. And this is the outcomes of what you put in. So if this doesn't come out well, it means you did not do what your due diligence here. You did not do what you were supposed to do here. Your 20% was not enough. If this doesn't come out the way you expected it, you did not do what you were supposed to do here. Give an example with an advert that runs on the most busiest slot, on a peak hour, or an advert that runs on a peak hour, on a busy prime time. The adverts that runs on prime time mostly are expensive from the service provider than the adverts that runs on off-peak times. So the reason why they're expensive, it's because the outcomes of the advert is expected to be the response of the 80% that they are targeted. So the advertisers are targeting the prime time because they know there's millions of people available during that time to see the adverts, and they expect the outcomes to be higher, which is the 80. So they do 20 and expect the 80 to address itself. I think that those are enough examples that I had to give for you to understand. You are an advertiser, you go to your National Broadcasting Corporation TV station, you ask for a primetime slot for an advert, then they give you the slot, you pay. Obviously it's going to be more expensive than the slot during the off-peak hours because the numbers are not the same. Here you are going to show your product or your service to millions of people. Here could be maybe 500,000 people. So the probabilities are higher here. So you're going to address your 80% with the 20 that you're going to put here. So you say maybe you pay R1 million for the advert that's going to run for less than a minute. And then you see the outcomes of your product when people start buying this product that you advertise on during prime time. And then you can see the outcomes. That's how it works. So whatever that you're going to put here, make sure that all the contributing factors are going to drive the 80%. That's the 20-80 I'm talking about. It's called the Paredo principle. Very important, very imperative for every entrepreneur to understand, because like us as emerging entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs and stuff like that, we tend to become everything in our businesses. Number one, you are HR. You log in you clock in at work in the morning. You check if everyone has clocked in. You are HR, and then if someone is not at work, then they will tell you, the same person. And an hour later, you are engaging your what do they call them? Patents and attorneys. You are busy with your patent attorneys, and then you engaging with your patent attorneys for an hour. You're discussing legal matters around patents and copyrights and trademarks. An hour later, you are in a meeting discussing transportation and logistics. You are now a logistic manager. An hour later, you are in a meeting engaging with IT guys, explaining what and how things should be, and you are busy fixing your systems. You are now an IT guy, So the entire day, you become all of those people in one, and you got to have some information. You got to know something, understand something, be able to represent yourself in any boardroom, where you'll be required to stand and talk on behalf of your entity, on behalf of your business. So this is the information that I think will equip most of you. You'll be able to understand these principles. You'll be able to understand how these things work. Because at the end of the day, the Paredo principle is going to be what you use to grow yourself in terms of customer base. Your total addressable market, like I said in the previous episode, you don't want to just be supplying the guy around the corner or servicing the guy just around the corner. You want to be servicing your province, your country, your continent, and the global market. I think everyone else, when they start their businesses, they want to see something like that. The picture that they have, the picture that they envisage about their products and services, it's obviously around that picture. So I'm hoping that will contribute something, and you'll be able to understand how all these things work. And there's a trend that I've noticed, that many entrepreneurs are. Today I'm not sharing any book. I'm not sharing any support programs. I want to share this trend. So there's a trend that I've noticed, because I'm always reading. I'm always on social media, at different platforms, reading about businesses and how businesses go, learn new things, new tricks, new approaches, new trends. So there's this trend that a lot of people are advertising their businesses. They're starting their business, they advertise, they're building, they want to capture as many customers as possible. And there's a risk as well, which is very high for your businesses, because this kills a lot of businesses. You go on social media, you start a business, say you are selling clothes. You're a middleman. You go buy clothes somewhere from a warehouse. They deliver for you. They come through in a plane, and then they deliver for you. And then you're a middleman basically. And then you take orders from your customers, and then when the stock is here, and then you deliver the products that they've bought. And then you go order again, and so on and so forth. It's sort of a value chain of some sort. So there's a trend where people go advertise these things on their social media platforms for people to place orders. We place orders as customers. And because you advertise, so there's a trend from entrepreneurs where they find it very easy to advertise, because sometimes we use our organic intellectualism. We apply the Paredo principle without understanding it. It's Paredo principle what we are doing. This is the trend that I've noticed. You go on your social media, your statuses, you advertise your products. That's 20%. You're trying to address 80. So when the 80 comes back to place orders, we become overwhelmed by the response, because we were not ready. The capacity that we have was never ready for the outcomes the 80 might bring or may bring. So the 80 comes back with so many customers. They place orders, you take their money, and then later on, because you don't have capacity, you are not able to deliver what they've ordered. I don't know what causes this, but people need to learn how to grow gradually. I'm not saying don't advertise, but you need to learn how to grow gradually. If you're advertising, advertise in with an understanding of such principles. I always give example with this. I was selling chickens, I was selling eggs, I was delivering to customers across the province, across the Limpopo province, and I've never advertised my products on my social media platforms. Not even a single day. Not once. I've never. So the early adopters were able to do the work for me. Then I crossed the chasm in a very safe and quick and swift way. So it did not really challenge me. And then I got to the early adopters. Early majority. The early majority was able to give me the late majority, and then I was able to get the laggards as well. So the diffusion of my innovation was quite conducive, was quite acceptable. It worked for me and my business, but I never advertised on my social media platforms. I never asked anyone to advertise for me. So word of mouth was what I used, but I put in more effort on the contributing factors, which was the 20%, and then I addressed the 80%. So I got orders gradually. They never overwhelmed me. But at some point, I could get a lot of orders where we could not even sleep enough because we had a lot of orders. Imagine if I had advertised in open platforms where everybody could see. I was going to get 500 orders a day, 1,000 orders a day. Just imagine. It could have overwhelmed me. And then people were going to say, this guy is advertising. When we order, he doesn't deliver. And then that kills the business. And most businesses have died due to exactly that. So do not try to work on your contributing factors by rushing the 80% to work out faster. Do your contributing factors knowing very well that you are targeting the customers in your district. Then you're going to move to customers in your province, customers in your country, and so on and so forth. That is going to save your business. Lastly, before I go, remember I'm sharing my journey on the smart skipping innovation. Last week, in the last episode, I spoke about, if I still remember, I spoke about mock pitching or mock judging. They were mock judging us, we were mock pitching. It was a simulated pitch where you had judges, but it was not the real pitch. And then they give you a recording, and then you listen to yourself and the mistakes that you've made, and then you prepare for the final one. Then we got to the final pitch. Ladies and gentlemen, I've never been so worried. I won't say I was scared or nervous. I was just worried because the competition was, excuse me, the competition was quite tough and tight because they selected people. I think we were 12, if not 15, and they wanted 8 out of the 12 or 15. 8 are going to be the final 8 in the country. So the competition was quite tight. They selected us as the finalist, and then semi-finalists, not sub-finalists, semi-finalists who are going to do final pitch. And I was a bit worried because competition was too tight. There were most of us doing similar things, kind of similar, and I was the second. I was the second to pitch. So the first person went in, the second person was me. Then after me was the other lady coming with the almost similar service and product and innovation as mine. So the competition was tight. I had to raise my bar a little bit because I'm used to standing in front of people and pitch. I used to standing in front of people and present. Based on my experience, I think that helped me a lot because I went in with an ammunition, with something that I believed other contenders did not have, and I was able to win based on that. I won on time. My timing, we were given 10 minutes to pitch, so I did it in 9 minutes and some couple of seconds, and I was very confident when I pitched. This was the finals, and there were prominent people in the boardroom that were busy. I mean, the boardroom table was that one of those big tables, and it was quite full with prominent people, managers, CEOs of companies, and then you pitch into all these people, investors as well. Then I was able to crack it, and I made it through to the top 8. That was it for today, and next week I'll continue the journey. So with that being said, I will see you next week.